On today's World Insight, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will lead a bipartisan delegation to China next week. Can U.S. members of Congress make headway in China when half of the U.S. Congress lacks a leader? And Japan will release its second round of nuclear-contaminated water. Countries across the Pacific are voicing their opposition to Japan's actions. What are the political implications of this discharge?
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. U.S. Republican Congressman Kevin McCarthy was ousted as House Speaker, giving McCarthy the shortest House Speakership in 140 years. Well, it's nothing short of chaos playing out in Washington. China and U.S. have been trying to maintain certain kind of dialogue. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will lead a bipartisan Senate delegation to China in the coming days. Chinese ambassador to the U.S. Xie Feng says there is still a long way to go to mend bilateral ties. To what extent can these high-level interactions bridge the trust deficit between the two countries? Is it realistic to do that? To answer that question, let's have our panelists. In Shanghai, Joseph Gregory Mahoney, professor of politics with East China Normal University. In Beijing, Zhao Hai, director of the International Political Studies with National Institute for Global Strategy. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen. Now, a lot of things going on in the political scene in the U.S., with particularly the House Speaker's issue. Now, Professor Mahoney, tell me more about your thoughts on the latest drama.
Well, it is a drama. And, if we go back to when McCarthy won the speakership, we recall that it took 15 votes, and he ended up making what turned out to be some self-defeating concessions to some of the Republican hardliners in order to secure their support to win that election. And he crossed their red line recently with the compromise that he made with Democrats to get a temporary funding bill through. And as promised, they brought him down. I think the question remains whether or not the House can be governed at this point by any one Republican House member, and whether or not they're going to be able to, even if they can establish a new speakership, whether or not they'll be able to work together to prevent a shutdown in November on the 17th when the current spending bill. If we look at McCarthy being ousted, what does this spell for China-U.S. relations? And I'm a little concerned that it might indicate some negative developments. For example, he didn't go all the way to Taipei the way his predecessor did, but a successor might. He didn't. It's also possible that a successor might agree to cut funding for Kiev to get a spending bill through next month. And some anti-China hawks in the Biden administration have seen the conflict in Ukraine as distracting the U.S. from even stronger efforts to contain and suppress China. And they would no doubt move quickly, if possible, to push freed up resources against Beijing and no doubt to enjoy bipartisan congressional support along the way. So yes, it's an interesting time in how it impacts what's going on with U.S.-China relations, or the upcoming Schumer-led senatorial visit to Beijing is certainly a hot topic.
Well, first of all, this is more than dramatic. I think this is unprecedented. In my memory, I think in the last 150 years, this never happened in U.S. history, with a current speaker that's been ousted by vote. And right now, this drama that is happening in the United States is absolutely, a barrier to a normal governance. Not only the normal budget cannot be passed, they can only live by the weeks, like depending on the continuing resolution. But also, neither party can process their own priority by getting the money out of the Congress. But I think one of the things is that coming down the road, it's hard to imagine which one would be the next speaker. And if there's a next speaker, he could also be short-lived because of the current complex political landscape he has to navigate. And it's very, very difficult at this point to satisfy either side on their political agenda.
The political fiasco already began before the election season comes. So how should we understand the continuous and probably escalating drama ahead? What does that mean for all of us?
Well, again, it certainly has some possible implications for the U.S. Position vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine. Nevertheless, I am concerned that the chaos in the House is good for no one. Above all, we have Wall Street that is starting to worry that this will increase the risks that we'll see a government shutdown next month, that this could undermine consumer confidence, that it could pressure the Fed to further increase interest rates. And again, this has implications not just for American citizens, but the entire world. So, chaos in Washington, whatever the smaller aspects might be in terms of pros and cons, it only spells trouble for everyone.
Of course, even the U.S. President, Mr. Biden, said this about the toxic political environment inside the U.S. Let's listen to this quote.
More than anything, we need to change the poisonous atmosphere in Washington. We have strong disagreements, but we need to stop seeing each other as enemies. We need to talk to one another, listen to one another, work with one another, and we can do that.
Given what the U.S. President's observation of its own domestic political environment, how do you see the party politics likely to play out leading up to the election?
President Biden has been working in Congress for decades. He knows very well the inner working of Congress. And right now, if he is also concerned, that means the U.S. Congress is really in trouble. And now the problem is that the Republicans in the House really has a very thin margin, 3 to 4 votes, to occupy the majority. If they cannot come up with the right candidate for speakership, then the U.S. is in big trouble, because not only the current budget cannot be passed, in the future there will be probably no major legislation will go through Congress. So far this year, the U.S. Congress has pretty much achieved the lowest level of legislation in the past year. That means the Congress is not really representing American people and not really working for American people. And going forward, if they continue to stand against each other, it's a very thin opportunity that they will come work together to move forward with other legislation. And coming next year, it's going to be election year, and probably all those congressmen will go back to their district and to go, campaigning against each other. So again, very limited chance of having another legislation. So there will be a stalemate in Congress, and the impact on next year's the campaign for presidency and for the control of Congress, of course, is going to get more intense, because both parties will accuse the other one. So, for instance, the Republicans will accuse Democrats to add more deficit, add more debt to the nation, and the other side will, of course, accuse the Republicans of blocking legislation, of going insane on those demands that will wreck the nation. So again, I think this political polarization will only get worse.
Professor Mahoney?
Well, I think one of the things that Biden is concerned about is twofold. First, that this dysfunction in Congress, and above all in the Republicans, it may create an opening for a third party or an independent run. Now, some analysis says that he would benefit, say, from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the nephew of the former President John F. Kennedy, and the son of the former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, who is a Democrat but appeals to Republicans and has indicated that he might run as an independent. If this race is one between Trump and Biden, then some analyses suggest that Biden would benefit from this RFK candidacy. However, I'm of the opinion, as are a lot of other analysts, that the incredible number of legal jeopardies that Trump currently faces will probably ultimately tank his campaign. leading to likely a different nominee from the Republicans. And if that's the case, I think that the OFK candidacy would hurt Biden more. And that's what he's concerned about at this point. He would much rather face Trump without a third candidate, and he would rather have some normalcy in Congress so that he can continue to move along and blame someone, but still look like he's the better option.
And now we are looking at the possible visit by the U.S. Senate leader, Democrat leader, Mr. Schumer. Of course, another very seasoned politician with the U.S. Congress. Now, Mr. Mahoney, tell me more about how do you see the Democratic leader from the Senate likely to navigate the very complex political landscape back at home during his trip to China?
Well, I'm not sure we really understand what Schumer's mission is. This certainly isn't a junket, but coming in a year when, as you've noted, multiple high-level meetings with cabinet officials failed to produce breakthroughs, we should ask, why is he and the other senators, why are they coming? I think from the Chinese and international perspective, generally, we hope these meetings are about the possibility of breakthroughs or progress of some sort. But I think it would be strange to see senators playing such a role, given the fact that the president is the kingpin of foreign policy making, and Biden's position, and really that of most U.S. politicians, including these senators, is well known to be largely negative with regard to China at this point. Now, it could be that these senators want to come to China because they're facing pressure from U.S. commercial interest to try to intervene and maybe pause or slow down some of the deteriorating ties. Or it may simply be that they want to gain more credibility and authority for their own positions. Maybe they come to these meetings in Beijing and they go back even more resolved to take a hard line. Or maybe they're just performing their due diligence in terms of providing congressional oversight with the administration. I think it will be very interesting to see how they play out. And I'm not really sure yet which direction they'll go, but I remain, unfortunately, a bit pessimistic.
Well, I think China overall welcomes the communication and exchange between the two sides. And now, because of the pandemic and other factors, the two Congress is not in face-to-face meetings for not for 3 years. So now this is a good chance to resume that communication. And now led by Chuck Schumer, remember, this is a bipartisan delegation. You have another 5 senators coming from different states and to different parties coming to China. So first of all, from China's perspective, of course, we welcome this visit. And of course, by this visit, the senators wish to meet with our top leader, President Xi Jinping, and to have a conversation about issues that they care about. For instance, in the statement, they talk about national security, economic practice, and other issues. But in reality, I think there are 2 issues they're focused on. One is, as Professor Mahoney mentioned, the pressure from the business community. They want to talk about China's activities regarding U.S. companies operating in China, particularly Micron, the semiconductor company that's been sanctioned by China. And the other one is fentanyl, which is the Biden administration, previously Trump administration, also very cared about. And right now, there's a national emergency that's going on in the United States, and U.S. want to enlist China's help. However, right up to this point, the U.S. has been taking unilateral actions against China, and most recently, they put 25 Chinese nationals and entities on their sanction list. They're not taking a cooperative attitude towards China. So hopefully, in this visit, Chuck Schumer and other senators would take a more cooperative position and find a ear in China that's willing to cooperate.
Of course, it would be too much of a luxury if we use the word trust, but at least to establish the basic ways of communicating with one another, how much do you think from both sides, some of the things they must do with the upcoming visit by the U.S. parliamentary delegation?
People-to-people exchanges are vital, that people actually sitting down and meeting each other is the key to moving forward, to reestablishing mutual trust and mutual understanding. And so I think this is, even if Beijing is being publicly optimistic, I think they understand that these kind of meetings, at the very least, help reestablish this understanding that we're all human, that we're all trying to survive, and despite facing increasing headwinds, and that hopefully human reason above all will rule these kind of encounters ultimately.
Well, I think the purpose of Senator Chuck Schumer's visit to China is to play wingman for President Biden and to support Democratic government's policy towards China. And the best outcome should be, from China's perspective, reestablish regular communications and establish some kind of mechanism between the two parliaments so that in the future they can communicate more smoothly without more interruption from political interference.
Zhao Hai, Joseph Gregory Mahoney, thank you so much, both of you gentlemen. Appreciate it.